Round 21, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and a race that pretty much summed up the entire season in the final round. Lewis Hamilton scampered off to the win, Max Verstappen put in a pretty good drive in the Red Bull to be second, and there was a lot of drama for Ferrari. For Hamilton, this one was pretty routine actually. Pole position was really strong, Valtteri Bottas, his teammate, started from the back. Mercedes were a bit too quick really. Once Hamilton got the lead off the start, he was unchallenged completely. Good strategy, fastest lap at the end as well for good measure. And 11 race wins for Hamilton, really, really strong. Ferrari got everything wrong. From Friday to Sunday, this was a weekend to forget really. Qualifying, disaster for Ferrari. Actually, in mitigation, it didn't really cost them a lot. They started third and fourth, but not getting a final run in qualifying was really crazy after what we've seen so far this year. China already, then Monza, the joke of that session, which there was some Ferrari tension about that one.
Little push now. Yeah, tell him to come in front then.
This, I don't blame the drivers. I think the drivers, there was no games being played by Vettel or Leclerc. Vettel wanted to get a lap in, he didn't want to hold back Leclerc, who just didn't get the lap in. The problem for Ferrari was they went out so late in the session for the gamble of trying to find a bit of track evolution. There's not really anything to be had there. We're talking 20 or 30 seconds of going out a bit earlier to be safer. Track evolution at this time is maybe 1,000th. It's really not necessary to do that. They needed to get the lap in, and actually, with Leclerc only qualifying 800ths behind Verstappen, who didn't improve at the end, they might have been on the front row. Probably wouldn't have changed the outcome of the race, but it was another silly decision and just meant there's a lot of question marks of the team on Saturday, and they didn't go away on Sunday either. Before the race, Charles Leclerc under investigation for a fuel infringement. The team declared a certain weight of fuel in the car, then it came out they had 4.88 kilos too much. So that was under investigation. They actually got fined post-race for it, but Leclerc kept his podium. And Vettel had a really long pit stop as well. So a lot of drama, but Leclerc kept his podium. Let's look at the only main bit of action between the front runners then. Verstappen had a pit stop much later than Charles Leclerc and came through up behind his rival on lap 32. Leclerc's coming around to put a lap on the Williams of George Russell, and he basically has the DRS open as well, but Verstappen has a good run and a double slipstream and manages to pull to the inside. Leclerc sees it too late, tries to cover it, and this was a really, really nice move from Verstappen. Just run his rival wide. We've seen him do that many times, including on Leclerc in Austria. But fair play to Leclerc, he managed to get back on the exit. He's got really old tyres at this point and opens the DRS down towards turn 11 and gave it a really good go actually to try and keep the position. On the outside, tries to turn in, but in the end, too little too late really. Verstappen through to second and Leclerc into third. And that was ultimately it for Leclerc and Ferrari. But it was very close behind with Valtteri Bottas in the end of the Grand Prix, who actually had a really, really good race and spent most of the first part of the race with no DRS, starting from the back as well. So if you're going to choose a race with no DRS when you're at the back in a Mercedes, that's a shocker. Opened for a couple of laps, then it shut with a technical issue, opened again on lap 18, and at that point Bottas was 20 seconds behind Leclerc and a pit stop behind him on top of that. He ended up right on the gearbox of Charles Leclerc. So that was good stuff. There's a bigger question on DRS though. It was interesting to see how drivers were reacting when they had no DRS. And we actually saw a few more interesting manoeuvres. Bottas made a pass on Lance Stroll into turn 5. And we also saw a really ambitious attempt from Carlos Sainz on Daniel Ricciardo on lap 13 as Sainz emerged from the pits. Let's have a look at that one. He came out of the pits and saw Ricciardo's just undercut him. That's a nightmare. And actually, at the first chance, he tries to go around the outside. Ricciardo's got the blinking red light. He's clipping and harvesting energy. So Sainz has a huge closing speed, sends one around the outside, and he's just too quick in and can't quite make it through. Then they come past the DRS line and around turn 7, but there's no DRS, and actually Sainz couldn't make it through then on the exit either. But I quite like the fact that we saw with no DRS, we saw some unconventional style overtakes. You'd never normally see someone try and pass into turn 5, because all that would happen was, best case you make it through 5 and 6, then there's a DRS activation line, your rival's right behind you, he's then going to get DRS and he's just going to come straight through on the next straight. So you would never see someone try and pass at turn 5. They just simply wait, sit in, follow through a couple of corners, and then have the run on the exit. So actually we had slightly pure racing for a short time with no DRS, but when Nico Hülkenberg couldn't get passed by Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes, and then there's Sebastian Vettel behind and a Ferrari on new tyres as well, then we realised once again why DRS is there. Because Hülkenberg was lapping about 2 seconds slower than Hamilton, who was on the same tyres in the same car as Bottas. So that shows the pace Bottas could have gone at. Because actually Bottas, for the remaining 37 laps after DRS opened, he was quicker than Hamilton. Caught Hamilton by 4 seconds. They both had a pit stop, they were on the same strategy. He had a really good race, and I think he would have been on the podium if he had DRS from the start. The key fight was the fight for 6th in the championship, which was between Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly, and Sainz ultimately needed 1 point to get it. The problem that he had, the 2 McLarens and the 2 Renaults started on the soft tyre because they made it into Q3. That meant that they were forced into an earlier pit stop, and it allowed firstly Nico Hülkenberg a little bit, but then massively Sergio Perez and Daniel Kvyat to go really long and be quick at the end, and they benefited from all the 2 McLarens and Ricciardo and then Hülkenberg being stuck behind Romain Grosjean. They lost a good few seconds behind Grosjean, which meant that many laps later when Perez pitted, he was right in that mix immediately because he hadn't lost so much time when Norris pitted for new tyres. So the 2 McLarens and 2 Renaults were doubly hindered in this race really. And Sainz took a gamble, a second pit stop and a charge at the end to get that 10th place. And it came right down to the wire. Luckily for him, Daniel Ricciardo and the other Renault also took the gamble and went for it. Renault split their strategies because if they didn't, Sainz passing 2 cars right at the end, I think would have been too much to ask. As it was the lone Renault left of Nico Hülkenberg in his final Formula 1 race for now, in 10th place, and Sainz caught him on the last lap, big pressure. This was their main focus of the Grand Prix, and it boiled down to one moment. So Sainz right on the tail of Hülkenberg, and now there is DRS. We're on the last lap of the race, and this is a critical pass. And this, for me, is actually one of the moves of the season. Really big pressure on Sainz. Final chance. If he doesn't make it through here, he's not coming through at all. And Hülkenberg knows he's there as well. In his final race, wants to finish it with a point as well. So Hülkenberg covers the middle, and Sainz goes to the right-hand side, just not wanting Hülkenberg to think about he's going to go for the inside. So he wants to keep his powder dry there, and then finally, last minute, dives to the inside. Full commitment from Sainz, really deep on the brakes, big old left front lock-up as well. Those tyres have only got another 10 corners to go anyway, so that doesn't really matter. The key thing is he got the place, and it was a really smart move, just getting Hülkenberg to think he'd covered the inside and made it through. And actually, if we switch to Daniel Ricciardo here as well, we can see that as Hülkenberg's been passed, he's got a great view of that move as well. But Hülkenberg gets so aggressively on the throttle, trying to get that place back into turn 14, which is a difficult place to overtake, and has a massive snap of oversteer as well, so Ricciardo follows through, but it's too late to do anything about Sainz, who claims just about his 6th place in the championship. But it could have been so different for him had Pierre Gasly not been hit at the start. Let's have a look at that then. Right back, lap 1, lights go out, and Gasly on the medium tyre, the yellow-walled medium tyre, which is the same as Perez, but he tries to go around the outside of Perez, has a little lock-up himself, and then gets a big bang from Perez's teammate Lance Stroll. The key view for this one is going to be on board with Stroll, who starts right next to Pierre Gasly in 12th place, and he gets a good start as well, but then tucks in behind his teammate, and as soon as he does that, he's missing front downforce, missing total downforce, but always more at the front. And he's just a passenger. You can see if I pause it there, he's turning the wheel hard. He knows what's about to happen, but he's just in the dirty air of his teammate Sergio Perez. And you always lose more front downforce, particularly in this instance. He's got a locked left front, he's got Pierre Gasly just on the outside, and just careers into the right left rear of Gasly and sends him basically out of the race. Gasly had a minute-long pit stop and needed a safety car to get back in it. So Stroll clearly to blame on that one. These things happen on the first lap. The cars are also closely bunched at turn 1. Drivers missing downforce and misjudging it, then these things happen. But Gasly and Perez were already quite deep into that corner. Gasly had a bit of a lock-up himself. Perez was deep trying to hold him back. And I think Stroll just got a bit carried away with that one, stayed right with them in the dirty air. And that's what left him sliding into the back of Gasly. So real shame for Gasly, because starting 11th on the medium tyre, it was also a preferable strategy. If he just kept his nose clean, surely he would have been able to fight with Sainz and get a point at least, which would have kept him that 6th place. Ultimately, he did keep his nose clean, but Stroll didn't and wiped his own nose off. Equally, on that last lap, turn 11, the same place that Sainz made the move on Hulkenberg, Perez made a really nice move on Sainz's teammate Lando Norris, who also had a good drive in the McLaren, kept his tyres alive from hitting lap 8. He had a staggeringly long distance to make them work, but just about did until the final lap. And let's have a look at this one. Perez, he's a long way back, look. If I pause it before the braking zone here, he's miles back, Sergio Perez. Norris surely has this one held on, but covers the middle of the road. Again, similar to Hulkenberg, he thinks he's done enough here, and he's completely caught napping Lando Norris. This is a little bit sloppy on the final lap. He's just got to see where Perez is. His only job has got to be keeping the Racing Point man behind, and Perez just ghosts around the outside of him. It's a really nice move. Late on the brakes, again, similar to Sainz's last chance to get that position, but I don't know where Norris was looking, because he just needed to release the brakes and be a bit more aggressive with Perez, not let him drive around the outside completely, and he got a bit mugged on that one. Perez said it was a move of his career, certainly a pretty nice one from a long way back, but I think if Norris had a bit more awareness about him and knew what was going on, I don't think he'd allow that one. I think he'd probably kick himself about that one in the end. So there we have it then, end of the season. I have to say, the championship's been wrapped up early. Hamilton's done a great job, Mercedes have done a great job. But there's been so many great races, a couple of absolute classics. For me, Germany and Brazil will live long in the memory. And hopefully the rules are staying the same so we can expect more for next year.